Hi guys, welcome back to the So You Think You Can France YouTube channel. Today we will talk about lesson planning and 3 tips I have for you if you've been having trouble planning lessons, or it's not really coming that naturally to you, or you're always feeling a little bit anxious or nervous before class starts because you don't feel as fully prepared as you should be feeling. This is coming off one of my recent blog posts on soyouthinkyoucanfrance.com/blog, and the title of it is called TAPIF, How to Plan Your Lessons and Not Go Insane, because sometimes it's not really that easy to plan all of your lessons, or you may be feeling like you're having to plan something different for each of your classes, which is a lot of work. And in reality, it doesn't have to be so difficult or so stressful. And then with just a couple of tips to remember and to keep in mind, it should be a lot more intuitive and a lot more streamlined. So, okay, let's go. So tip number 1 is planning your courses is only about 1 week in advance. And I think sometimes you may be thinking, well, I want to prepare like at least a month in advance, or want to have like all of my classes planned out even for the year. And if you're not there, then you may be at the other end of the spectrum thinking, oh, I'll just plan it, the day before. That should be fine. The reason I like to plan about 1 week in advance is because you have more of an idea of what the students in your classes are doing. Sometimes if you plan really far in advance, you don't really have an idea of where their level is, if their level is appropriate for what you're going to be implementing. And so usually when I plan 1 week in advance, I have kind of an idea of where they're at in terms of like level, comfort with English, if my class really speaks a lot, or if they're still kind of getting used to everything. So what I'll do is when I have a rotation of classes, I'll have a little group of about 10 students, and while they're working on an assignment or like a written project, I will just go into my spiral bound notebook and just write for the next week, the next class, what is working, what's not working, and what I can improve on with the next rotation of that same class. Yeah, so that helps me. Just planning 1 week in advance helps me really stay focused on what's going on in the moment in my class, and it definitely helps me stay focused on what's at hand. So any subjects that the students are learning in their regular classes that I can implement, and so on and so forth. Tip number 2 is to adapt the same lesson that you've created to all of your classes, or many of your classes. So in other words, this is saying if you've created a lesson plan or an activity for your class that spans the whole hour that your students are with you, or in other cases, the whole half hour that the students are with you, instead of having to make a different lesson and activity for every class, I like to make one lesson and see how I can adapt that to different levels. So for example, I have an activity where I have the students create a rap song in class, because a lot of students are into American rap, and whenever I introduce the topic, they're very excited about it. And I will be writing a blog about this type of lesson to share with everyone so that they can implement this as well. But so if I have a rap activity planned, I know for a fact that my première and terminale students, that's basically like high school, junior, and seniors, they'll have a good handle on it, whereas my seconds, which are about freshman, sophomore level, they'll be a little bit less advanced in English, so I may be a little bit more hands-on with them, helping them. So we may focus on just simply coming up with a theme and coming up with rhyming sentences, just basic phrases or sentences. that they can connect together, kind of to get them comfortable with vocabulary and just rhyming in general. But yeah, I'll have one lesson and just kind of adapt it to all my rotations. The only problem with this is that it gets boring after a while for the teacher. So although it's a completely new thing for classes, it can get really repetitive to repeat the lesson 12 times, 24 times, 36 times if you have 3 rotations in each class, if that makes sense. So that's why sometimes I will come up with 2 or 3 lessons and then kind of decide which classes can take which lessons. Because for me in my school with my teachers, I tend to have a little bit more free reign. The teachers just give me the students and then I can work on generally whatever I want with them. So yeah, it varies, everything varies, but if you have a little bit more control over what you can present and share and teach to the students, I would definitely recommend having one or a couple go-to lessons in a certain segment of the year and kind of just dividing them up between which classes would be interested in which ones. I hope that made sense. But if not, leave a comment, send me a message. I would be more than happy to clarify. And tip number 3, this kind of goes with, or kind of goes on the opposite end of tip number 2. So tip number 3 is if you do have teachers who give you lessons and topics to talk about or to teach about, you should have just a lesson plan framework of what you're going to do. So say for instance, I have one teacher who's talking to her class about climate change. That was one of the ones I've had recently. And then I'll have another class, maybe a higher level class whose teachers, they're discussing like the idea of the American dream. Those were the 2 examples I used in the blog post. But obviously they're 2 very different subjects, and so you're going to have to prepare 2 different things. But if you have a lesson plan format that can be used to kind of plug in different topics and just kind of go from there, then that would save you a lot of time and mental energy, as opposed to just like, okay, I have one class on climate change, figure out this whole lesson plan, which will take how X amount of time. And then I have this class over here, which will take, you know, like that same amount of time. So instead of taking all of this time to do it, you just have your worksheet of lesson plan and the format. So in terms of format, I have a resource available on soyouthinkyoucanfrance.com, and it's basically an email PDF document that has 3 different lesson plan formats, and as well as 3 different examples of how to use each format. And they're tried and true lesson plans, so things that have worked well with French high school students, yeah, just different ways to implement them. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and go to www.soyouthinkyoucanfrance.com, scroll down a little bit, and you should see a little banner giving you the option to put in your email address to receive that PDF document through your email. So hopefully that helps you. I think it will. It definitely helps me when planning my lessons and giving me a nice adaptable format to put different lessons, different topics into. So yes, so I think that's about it, you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope these videos are helpful. I try to keep them around the 10-minute mark so that it's not so much information. Everyone's busy, I know, so I hope that it gives you a nice little bit of information every now and then. So the podcast is still growing strong at soundcloud.com/FrenchMisAdventures. We're going to upload a new one in the next couple of days, and it is pretty full of information, well, pretty full of stories. Last week was an eventful week. So yes, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next week, probably when I upload another video. Okay, have a good day. Bye.